There is green on my shirt, so there are going to be parts of me that are see-through, but that's okay. So today I have another video brought to you by my sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare.com is an online learning community where they have over 20,000 tutorial videos on how to do various creative things. Things like how to draw, how to create storybooks, how to hand letter, how to do photography, how to edit in certain programs, all kinds of things. With the premium membership, you have unlimited access to all the videos on the website. And with the annual plan, it works out to about $10 a month. But the first 500 people to use my link in the video description will get their first 2 months of Skillshare for free. I definitely recommend you take advantage of that and learn something new. When I first went on Skillshare, one of the first things that caught my eye, because it was on the homepage, was a video about hand lettering. I didn't watch it at the time, but I was just so intrigued and I was like, oh, I really want to learn how to do that. I have to do that for a future Skillshare video. And now is finally the time. I have literally been watching hours of hand lettering videos this week. It's just so addicting because it's different than your handwriting. It's like you're doing some kind of cool graphic way of writing for either a sign or for a logo or whatever you want, really, but it's just something neat and fancy, and I want to learn how to make fancy letters. So here you see me practicing some of my hand lettering. I'm not very good yet because I'm still very new at it, but I'm still happy with what I've learned so far. I'm like, dang, look what I can do. It's not as good as the teachers, but I'm still proud. I watched a whole bunch of hand lettering videos by Peggy Dean. She's actually one of the top teachers on Skillshare, and her videos are so useful. At first, I was drawn to her video called iPad Lettering, the Ultimate Guide, because I was like, I have an iPad Pro now, and I'm excited to do all these things with it. So I start watching it, and then I was like, wait, I have no idea how to actually hand letter. So I had to go back and start with the basics and work my way through. She gives a lot of tips on how to form your letters nicely and do different ways of doing letters, and she just gives lots of really good examples, and it's easy to follow along. The trick for me was figuring out what brush pen I wanted to use, because I do have quite a few brush pens, but a lot of them are just not really good for hand lettering. Like, for example, my Pentel Pocket brush pen, maybe some people like it for lettering, but I don't, because it has individual bristles, so it has sort of a paint stroke effect whenever you lift the pen, and it's just too long and too flexible. It's not firm enough. It's up to personal preference what you like, but I felt like I really struggled with that pen, so I wanted something that had a shorter, firmer nib. I have two Pilot brush pens. One has a short, firm nib, and one has a longer, softer nib. And again, the longer, softer one I was just struggling with, so I really like the shorter one. The only problem was that it is so small that I have to press really hard to get a thick line, and even then, the line is not that thick. And trying to do really light pressure to do a very light line was difficult. So I still struggled with it, but it was still my favorite of the brush pens. The thing I liked the best was actually Copic markers. I thought, oh, the brush is too long, I'm not gonna like it, but it's firm enough that it actually works nicely. The only thing is that for me, I can only do large lettering with it. It's hard to do anything too small. So I practiced a bit both with the Pilot brush pen and with my Copic markers. I like that the Copic markers worked out because I have a lot of different colors, whereas with my other brush pens, I only have black. So after practicing, I wanted to try writing some actual phrases on a little decorative background, almost like a little sign you could hang in your house or something. In one of Peggy's videos, she showed a technique where she took her Tombow markers and she would scribble onto a piece of plastic. So she'd use one color, switch to another marker, do a different color, almost making like a gradient. And then she would spritz water on it and transfer the ink from the plastic onto paper. That way it would create almost a bit of a watercolor effect. So first I needed a spray bottle. So I went to the dollar store, but the drops of water were too big coming out of it, and sometimes it would even squirt out a little jet stream of water. And you want something that'll give a fine mist because you want to wet the ink but not have drops of water that will run off the plastic when you go to flip it over. So what I ended up using was this spray bottle that's actually for a heat protectant for my hair by Tresemme. It makes a perfect fine mist, so I was like, yeah, I'll use this. I mean, I didn't use the actual product, I put water in it, but yeah. I also tried doing this with my Copic markers and putting rubbing alcohol into the spray bottle, but it just didn't work as well. It did transfer, it just has a different look and I didn't like it as much. I preferred how it looked with water-soluble markers, and in my case I used Crayolas. I think that made it a lot nicer of a background. But yeah, once the background's dry, you can just write your message on top. The key is to write it lightly in pencil first and then go over it. And for the lettering itself on these, I used my Copic markers because, like I said, they're really nice for larger letters. So by now I was starting to get a hang of the lettering a little bit, and I wanted to delve into that iPad video. There is a brush pen in Procreate that works pretty well, but after playing around with it, I felt like it wasn't doing quite what I wanted it to do. Peggy actually created her own custom brush for Procreate for doing lettering, and she makes it available for free on her website, so I downloaded that and ended up using that instead of the one that was in Procreate already. She showed a neat trick where after drawing your letters, you can then swipe sideways on the layer, and what that does is it creates an alpha lock, so then you can then color over top of that layer, and anything you draw will stay confined to the letters, so you can do various different effects. And she has so many that she covers in the video. I just did a very basic one here where I did a little speckle effect using some textured brushes. I definitely recommend that video because then you can do some fancy hand lettering in Procreate because they don't have a text tool, so it's like, I'll just make my own text. Also, just a little tidbit about the alpha lock in Procreate. It used to be that you'd swipe right on the layer with one finger. Now you have to swipe right with 2 fingers. I just thought I'd mention that in case it wasn't clear in the little demo. The next thing I wanted to do was to try to incorporate the hand lettering into a piece of art. And I kind of did that earlier with the whole marker smearing thing, but I wanted to actually draw something myself and incorporate text into it. I thought a nice round design would work well where I could have text above and text below. So I drew a random girl because that's what I draw, random girls and bun buns. I wanted some kind of background for the lettering, which is why I did the clouds. It helps to frame her, but also gives me a background for the lettering. I knew the lettering would have to be dark because I'm using Copics, they're not opaque, so I made the clouds really light colors, and that way I could do dark lettering on top. This drawing was a bit small for the size of lettering I ended up doing, because like I said, it's hard to do small letters with the Copics, at least for me, because I'm new at this. And so it was a struggle to do this text as small as I did on this drawing. The ones I did earlier on the colored backgrounds, those were easier because I was writing larger. So this one was a little tricky, but not too bad. It is nerve-wracking though when you finished your illustration and it's like, okay, time to write on it in this non-erasable ink. Cool. I mean, the whole thing is permanent. I can't really remove ink I've laid down unless it's like a light color and I can kind of remove it with my colorless blender or cover it up with another color, but for the most part, the entire drawing is permanent in a sense. There's no undo button, but it's just so much more nerve-wracking with the text, maybe because I'm not used to it and just because it's almost the focal point of the picture. It's probably more of a focal point than she is, and it's just, I don't know. I was just scared I was gonna mess it up. But again, that's why you write in pencil first, to help minimize your chance of mistakes. That way you're really only focusing on what parts are thick, what parts are thin, instead of the whole flow of the letters and the shape of the letters and stuff like that. One thing I really want to try to get better at with the hand lettering is adding bounce. It's kind of like when one letter's up here, but then the end of it dips down, and like not all the letters are at the same height necessarily, and some strokes go down further than others. So instead of just being straight across, it has more life to it. I feel like even when I try to add that to mine still ends up looking kind of stiff and lifeless, but yeah, it's still okay. It's one of those things where you look at it, you're like, oh, this isn't half bad, but then you compare it to what the professionals are doing and what the teacher did in the video, and you're like, oh, maybe mine's not so good. But that's why you gotta practice. Finding new things to try is one of my favorite things about Skillshare. Even if you don't know what you're looking for, you can just start browsing and see what you find. What I was going for with this art is it's like, oh, cute girl, pastel colors, cute writing, but the message is something silly. I just like the juxtaposition of the message versus the aesthetic. Anyway, that is it for this video. Be sure to check the link down below to get those 2 free months of Skillshare. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.